Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. The date is 18th Dhul Hijjah 1447 on the Islamic calendar, corresponding to 4th June 2026 on the Gregorian calendar. And you are watching Muslim World News with me, your host Abdulrahman Mohamed. Let's dive in head first and take a look at today's headlines. On our local headline, Kenya discusses Ebola response with US. On international headlines, Ghanaians return home amid tension. Taking a look at business news, corporate bond markets record strong growth. And finally on sports news, Salah and Belgium chase World Cup glory. Assalamu alaikum dear viewers. Now let's take a look at our first story. Right here in Kenya, the Kenyan government confirms ongoing discussions with the United States and other international partners following reports that Americans exposed to Ebola in Uganda may be monitored or treated in Kenya as part of global efforts to contain the outbreak. Adan Duale says Kenya engages in talks within the framework of international health corporations and strict national safety standards as authorities monitor the situation closely. Duale says Kenya remains committed to protecting its citizens while supporting global health security efforts, stating Kenya welcomes partnerships that strengthen preparedness and response to public health threats. Health officials increase surveillances at points of entry, including airports and border crossings, as concerns grow over possible cross-border transmission. Public debate continues as some citizens raise questions over safety and transparency regarding the proposed arrangements. The government urges calm and reassurance to the public that no Ebola cases have been reported in the country and that preparedness systems remain active and responsive. Ebola outbreak in the region, particularly in Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, prompt heightened alert levels across East Africa. Kenya strengthens its disease surveillance systems, emergency response units, and laboratory testing capacity to prevent importation of cases. The country also coordinates with the World Health Organization and regional partners to improve rapid response mechanisms, contact tracing, and border health screening. Still on the Ebola story, heavily armed Kenya Defense Forces personnel have blocked hundreds of angry Nanyuki residents from marching onto the Laikipia Air Base during a tense demonstration against a proposed international Ebola quarantine facility. Furious crowds carrying placards paralyzed the streets of Nanyuki on Monday morning, June 1st, 2026, forcing military forces to deploy armored containment perimeters outside the installation gates to successfully push back the civilian marchers. The community uproar centers around a highly controversial bilateral plan where the United States will inject $13.5 million into Kenya's healthcare system to construct a 50-bed isolation ward in the airbase, specifically meant to house foreign nationals and Americans exposed to Ebola abroad. Local residents and regional politicians opposed the hub, arguing that since airbase personnel live and mingle freely with the tight-knit Nanyuki community, any microscopic containment breach would ruin local tourism and endanger nearby schools. The physical street protest erupted despite a recent High Court emergency ruling that legally suspended the facility's construction, demanding that the national government respect the ongoing court injunction and find an alternate location outside of Kenya. Local resident Douglas Mwangi stated during the protest, "We are in constant contact with the officers at the Laikipia airbase. Children studying in the areas neighboring the airbase are at risk of contracting the virus, and if they are infected, we are likely to get infected." As anti-riot police and military guards maintain a heavily guarded, watchful eye over the northern area base, local leaders vow to keep up the pressure until the medical project is permanently scrapped. And now on our next story, President William Ruto has signed 3 major bills into law at State House, Nairobi, in a move that is expected to strengthen governance structure, improve efficiency in public service delivery, and support the country's broader economic reform agenda. Speaking during the signing ceremony, President Ruto said these laws are designed to enhance accountability, improve coordination within government institutions, and ensure that citizens receive faster and more effective services. He further noted that the government remains committed to implementing reforms that will strengthen institutions and promote sustainable national development. The newly enacted laws were passed by Parliament after several rounds of debate where lawmakers assessed their implications on public administration, transparency, and national development priorities. The legislation targets reforms in key sectors of governance, aiming to reduce delays in decision-making process and improve the implementation of government programs. The signing comes at a time when the administration is intensifying efforts to accelerate development projects and strengthen institutional performance across ministries and state agencies. Analysts note that the law could help address long-standing inefficiencies in service delivery while reinforcing the government's commitment to reform, accountability, and improved governance in public institutions. Moving forward, President William Ruto has officially renamed the newly constructed Wajir Stadium in honor of the late former cabinet minister Ahmed Khalif during a historic Madaraka Day national celebration. The head of state issued the executive directive on Monday morning, June 1st, 2026, while presiding over the 63rd Madaraka Day festivities, marking the first time the national holiday has ever been hosted in Wajir County. The 10,000-seater facility, built in a record-breaking 100 days by a round-the-clock construction team, will now be known as Ahmed Khalif Wajir Stadium. The naming honors the late Wajir West Member of Parliament and Kibaki-era Labour Minister, who tragically died in a notorious plane crash in January 2003, just 20 days after his historic cabinet appointment. The stadium announcement was part of a broader development package unveiled by the president to correct decades of historical marginalization in northern Kenya. President Ruto promised to upgrade the stadium to international athletic standards, build a civilian terminal at the Wajir airport, and immediately set up the first ever University of Wajir, welcoming the governor's emotional request to immortalize the regional icon before thousands of spectators. President Ruto declared from the main podium, "I want to assure you that this stadium, which we have built in a short time, will be completed to international standards, and after completing the stadium, just as you requested, and I agree with you 100%, this facility will be called Ahmed Khalif Wajir Stadium." As the colorful national celebrations wrapped up in the northeast, the legacy of one of Wajir's greatest sons is now permanently etched into the concrete of the region's finest stadium arena. Now, on our next story, Muslims across Kenya gathered in mosques and open grounds to celebrate Eid al-Adha with prayers, animal sacrifice, and family gatherings. The celebrations took place in major towns including Nairobi, Mombasa, and Kisumu as faithful marked one of the most important Islamic holidays. However, many families said the rising cost of food, livestock, and transport affected preparations for the celebration this year. Some traders reported reducing sales as buyers struggled with the high prices of goats and other essentials. Religious leaders used the occasion to encourage peace, unity, and generosity towards the less fortunate in society. Faith and sacrifice remain the heart of Eid al-Adha, an imam told worshippers. During prayers, despite the economic challenges, Muslims continued to observe the festival with gratitude and devotion. Now we move forward, but with grief, because on our next story, authorities and child rights organizations have raised concerns over the increasing number of children reported missing across Kenya. Recent reports show that thousands of child protection cases involving abduction, trafficking, and disappearances have been recorded in the country. Parents have expressed fear following several incidents where children disappeared under unclear circumstances. Officials warned that many children remain unaccounted for despite ongoing investigations and rescue efforts. Child protection agencies are now urging parents to monitor children closely and report suspicious activities to security officers immediately. Our children are being stolen, lawyer Faith Odhiambo said, while reacting to the growing crisis of missing children. The government has promised to strengthen child protection systems and improve coordination among security agencies to address the problem. Now, as we move forward, a tragic fire at Umtumishi Girls Academy in Gilgil, Nakuru County left several students dead and many others injured after flames swept through a dormitory at night. According to police and education officials, the fire broke out shortly after midnight while students were asleep. Emergency response teams rushed to the school to rescue learners trapped inside the dormitory as parents gathered outside the school seeking information about their children. Several injured students were taken to nearby hospitals for treatment while authorities launched investigations into the cause of the fire. Investigations are ongoing, but the cause of the fire is not yet identified, Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba said. The tragedy has once again raised concerns over safety standards and emergency preparedness in boarding schools across the country. Now, our next story takes us to Ethiopia, where Ethiopians are preparing to head to the polls for the first time since the devastating Tigray peace deal. But a controversial opposition ban has thrown the historic vote into deep political uncertainty. The National Election Board of Ethiopia confirmed the finalization of voter registries for the 2026 election cycle on Monday, June 1st, 2026, marking the first nationwide ballot since the November 2022 Pretoria Agreement ended a brutal two-year civil war. The democratic process faces a severe legitimacy crisis after the election board officially deregistered and banned the Tigray People's Liberation Front from participating. Electoral officials cited the party's failure to hold a mandatory foundational congress, a move Tigrayan leaders claim directly violates the spirit of the post-war peace accord. The exclusion comes as Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's ruling Prosperity Party tightened its grip, placing federal allies in the northern region in interim administration. Analysts warn that locking the TPLF out of the political sphere threatens to completely alienate northern voters and could reignite conflict in areas still recovering from widespread devastation. Condemning the electoral board's sweeping disqualification order, regional TPLF representatives issued a scathing joint statement declaring the decision to ban our movement is a return to a policy of open antagonism that completely undermines the Pretoria Agreement. With security forces deploying heavily on major polling stations across Addis Ababa and regional borders to prevent electoral violence, Ethiopia's fragile peace is facing its most delicate trial yet. Now, moving forward, still in Africa, hundreds of Ghanaians are returning home from South Africa as fear grows over the safety of foreign nationals following recent anti-immigration protests. The first group of returnees was scheduled to leave Johannesburg on Wednesday after registering with Ghanaian authorities, who say many citizens requested assistance to return home amid rising tensions in part of South Africa. Speaking to the BBC, Ghanaian High Commissioner Benjamin Kwashie said, and I quote, "The Ghanaian government listened to the plight of its citizens in South Africa who felt their lives were in danger, who felt like the economic activity that they were engaging in had come to a standstill, who felt unwelcomed in this country, and it is the responsibility of every government to ensure that its citizens are taken care of both home and abroad." The repatriations exercise follows weeks of demonstrations in several South African cities where protesters have called for stronger action against illegal immigration. While organizers maintain the protests have been peaceful, concerns have emerged among migrants communities due to South Africa's history of xenophobic violence. Ghanaian officials say they are helping citizens who wish to return and have promised support programs to assist them in rebuilding their lives and businesses once they arrive home. Now our next story takes us on to the Middle East, where Kuwait has activated its nationwide air defense networks to intercept a swarm of incoming missiles and drones as a fierce military escalation erupts. Air raid sirens and emergency mobile alerts disrupted the early morning hours of Monday, June 1st, 2026, warning citizens of imminent danger as interceptor batteries engage targets over the Jahra region, west of Kuwait City. The aerial assault is a direct consequence of a major weekend showdown in the Persian Gulf. United States Central Command launched heavy airstrikes on Saturday and Sunday, destroying Iranian regime radar sites and drone control stations on Qashm Island after an American MQ-9 Predator drone was shot down over international waters. In a sharp counter-response, Iran's Revolutionary Guard confirmed it targeted the strategic origins of the American operations. Kuwait, which hosts the Forward Command headquarters for U.S. Army Central, found its airspace heavily violated, instantly sparking fears of a wider regional war that could derail ongoing U.S.-Iran ceasefire negotiations. Issuing an urgent bulletin via social media as explosions echoed near the capital, the General Staff of the Kuwait Armed Forces declared the Kuwaiti air defense are currently responding to hostile missiles and drone threats. The public is urged to adhere to safety and security instructions. While both Washington and Tehran continue to trade heavy blows across the Gulf waterway, Kuwait's traditional role as a peaceful diplomatic mediator is being severely tested by the realities of incoming fire. Still on the Middle East, a fragile Middle East ceasefire has completely shattered after Israel ordered immediate airstrikes on Beirut's southern suburbs, prompting Iran to warn Israeli residents to flee the country's northern territories. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Israel Katz issued the joint military order on Monday morning, June 1st, 2026, citing what they termed repeated ceasefire violations by Hezbollah following the capture of the strategic Beaufort Castle in southern Lebanon. Massive traffic gridlocks have paralyzed roads leading out of the Dahiyeh district in Beirut as thousands of Lebanese civilians stumble to evacuate. In response, Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya military headquarters issued a chilling counter-evacuation order, warning Israeli citizens in northern military settlements to leave their homes immediately or face the incoming retaliation. The military brinkmanship has spilled directly into global trade and international diplomacy. Tehran has completely suspended all indirect back channels talks with the United States and has deployed naval assets to block the critical Strait of Hormuz, while activating regional allies to choke off the Bab al-Mandab Strait in the Red Sea, demanding an immediate halt to the Israeli military offensive. Iran Foreign Minister spokesperson Ismail Baqai stated during a press briefing, "We insist that a ceasefire in Lebanon is an essential condition for any deal aimed at ending the war." As the United Nations Security Council convenes an emergency meeting later in New York to address the spiraling regional conflict, millions of civilians on both sides of the border remain caught directly in the line of fire. Now taking a look at the Western world, where the New York City Mayor Zahran Mamdani has broken a 6-decade-long political tradition by boycotting the annual Israel Day parade, fulfilling a progressive campaign pledge that has deeply polarized the city. More than 50,000 people marched down Manhattan's Fifth Avenue on Sunday afternoon, May 31, 2026, under tight anti-terror security, celebrating the annual culture event completely without the presence of the city's chief executive. Mamdani, who took office in January as New York's first ever Muslim mayor, defended his absence by stating the boycott directly honors his campaign promises to hold the Israeli government accountable. While past mayors historically used the parade as a mandatory display of cross-community solidarity, Mamdani is the first leader to skip the event since its inception in 1965. The political boycott drew a sharp contrast on the pavement as high-ranking Democrats, including Governor Kathy Hochul and Senator Chuck Schumer, marched prominently to show a united front with the city's Jewish community. Although the mayor refused to march, he directed the New York Police Department to deploy massive resources, ensuring the high-sensitive event concluded safely without violence. Defending his deliberate choice to skip the massive culture march during a City Hall security briefing, Mayor Zahran Mamdani stated to reporters, "My decision to not participate in Sunday's parade is consistent with a pledge I made while campaigning for mayor, but I remain entirely responsible for the safety and security of all New Yorkers." As City Hall navigates the immediate political fallout from this unprecedented cultural boycott, the move signals a dramatic and permanent shift in how American local leaders approach international diplomacy. From stories of real human lives and faces, let's take a look at numbers and statistics on business news. Well, on our first story, Kenya has overtaken Nigeria to become the third largest borrower from the African Development Bank, reflecting the country's growing reliance on multilateral leaders to finance development projects and support economic programmers. The latest data shows Kenya received increasing funds from the bank, pushing it ahead of Nigeria in the leaders' ranking to borrowers across the continent. The funds have maintained supported infrastructure, energy, transport, and other key development projects. The development comes at a time when Kenya continues to seek affordable financing options amid raising debts, obligations, and pressure on public finances. Multilateral institutions such as the African Development Bank are often viewed as a cheaper source of funding compared to commercial borrowing. The economists say the increased borrowing highlights both Kenya's development ambitions and the need for careful debt management to ensure borrowed funds generate economic growth and long-term benefits. The African Development Bank remains one of the continent's leading development finances, supporting projects aimed at boosting economic growth, regional integration, and job creation. Now, as we proceed with business news, civil servants across Kenya are set to face increased performance monitoring as the Salaries and Remunerations Commission shifts attention from wage level to employee productivity and service delivery. The move comes amid growing concerns that rising government spending on salaries has not matched by improvement in public services. The Commission says future discussions should focus more on the value and results delivered by public workers rather than the only size of the wage bill. To address the issue, the Commission has planned a national conference that will bring together government officials, private sector leaders, civil society groups, and development partners to discuss ways of improving efficient and accountability in the public sector. Officials argue that Kenya has spent years trying to control the public wage bill through financial limits, but many government institutions continue to exceed the recommended threshold. The Commission believes that stronger performance measures system could help ensure that public resources are used effectively while improving service offered to citizens. Outstanding institutions are also expected to be recognized for strong performance. The proposal has sparked debate on how government can balance fair compensation for workers with a need for better productivity and fiscal sustainability. And now on our final business story, Kenya's corporate bond market has experienced remarkable growth over the past year, with the value of issued and outstanding corporate bonds increasing more than 4 times to surpass 100 billion shillings. The growth reflects renewed confidence among investors and companies seeking alternative sources of funding. Several major firms including Safaricom, East African Breweries, I&M Bank and Kenya Mortgage Refinance Company have raised billions of shillings through bond issuances to finance expansion plans, refinance debts and support business operations. Analysts attribute the surge to lower returns on government securities, which have encouraged investors to look for higher yielding opportunities in the corporate debt market. This has helped revive a market that has remained relatively quiet for several years. The increased activity has also broadened investment options for individuals and institutions seeking diversified portfolios while providing companies with access to long-term financing. Market experts believe the strong performance signals growing maturity in Kenya's capital markets and could encourage more companies to consider bond financing in the future. From numbers and statistics of business news, now let's take a look at sports news. We're on our first sports story. Oliver Glasner says he rules out any immediate future plans after guiding Crystal Palace through a successful end-of-season campaign, insisting he is focused only on recovery and time with family following celebrations at the end of his tenure. Glasner says he is not considering any new coaching roles or negotiations at this stage as he steps away from the club after a strong and emotional spell in charge. He says, "I haven't thought about anything beyond tomorrow. I will fly back with a hit of a hangover, then spend time with my family." The Austrian manager adds that his priorities remain reflecting on the achievements made with his players and enjoying the moment after a demanding season. Supporters and players continue to celebrate his impact after a successful run that delivered silverware and restores confidence at the club. The club confirmed earlier that Glasner plans to leave at the end of the season, despite guiding a revival that includes trophy success and European qualification. Palace officials praise his leadership, saying he transforms the team's mentality and leaves behind a stronger, more competitive squad ready for future challenges. Moving forward, Jannik Sinner and Arya Sabalenka continue to command attention at the French Open in Paris as both top seeds push deeper into the tournament at Roland Garros, aiming to maintain their strong momentum on clay. Jannik Sinner remains in dominant form on the men's side, displaying consistency, calmness under pressure, and controlled shot-making as he advances through the draw. The world number 1 targets another Grand Slam title after an impressive season across the ATP Tour. Sinner says he focused on each match and avoids distractions as the competition intensified. "I feel ready for any condition they put me in," he says. On the women's side, Aryna Sabalenka continues her strong campaign with powerful performances and improved confidence on clay court, overcoming tough opposition in the early rounds. Sabalenka says she trusts her preparation and physical condition as she moves forward in the tournament. "I feel strong physically and I'm enjoying every match here in Paris," she says. The French Open grows more competitive as both players position themselves as strong contenders for the title, with fans anticipating high-intensity clashes in the coming rounds at Roland Garros. And on our final sports story, Mohamed Salah and Belgium's experienced golden generation enters the 2026 FIFA World Cup in the United States, Canada and Mexico as both sides aim to finally secure international glory on football's biggest stage. Egypt forward Mohamed Salah leads his national team into the tournament with hopes of delivering a strong campaign after years of outstanding club success with Liverpool but limited international silverware for Egypt on the global stage. Belgium's so-called golden generation, including Kevin De Bruyne and Romelu Lukaku, also prepares for what is widely seen as their final major World Cup push after several near misses in previous tournaments. Salah says he remains fully committed to representing Egypt, saying this is about fighting for my country and making every moment count. Belgium striker Romelu Lukaku stresses unity and belief within the squad, saying, "We know this is our last real chance and we want to do it together." Analysts say both teams carry quality and experience, but also pressure, as this tournament may define the legacy of two of football's most recognizable groups of players. The World Cup offers a crucial opportunity for both Egypt and Belgium to return long-standing expectations into major international success on football's highest stage. And before we wrap up, here's something extraordinary that happens every time you meet someone new. Did you know your brain can form a first impression of someone in as little as a tenth of a second? Long before a conversation begins, your mind is already processing facial expressions, body language, and other subtle cues. This ability evolved as a survival mechanism, helping humans quickly assess whether a person might be friendly, trustworthy, or a potential threat. While these snap judgments aren't always accurate, they just show how fast and efficiently the brain works. In fact, many of our first impressions are formed before we've even heard the other person speak. So the next time you meet someone and instantly feel a certain way about them, remember, your brain has already been hard at work making decisions before you even realize it. If you didn't know, dear viewers, now you know. That brings us to the end of today's program of Muslim World News, but as we've come to the end of our news bulletin, we bring you this week's feature story. I've been your host Abdulrahman Mohamed, and it's been a pleasure having you with us. Stay informed, stay inspired, and may peace be upon you. Our reporter now brings us the special feature.
As the spirit of Eid brings families and communities together in celebration, one event in Nairobi sought to offer something more than festivities. It offered inspiration, empowerment, and meaningful connection. At Arabian Cuisine in Upper Hill, Lariba Banking, the Islamic banking proposition of Absa Bank Kenya, hosted the Sultanah Eid Dinner 2026. The elegant gathering brought together women, leaders, entrepreneurs, professionals, and change makers under the theme Honoring Queens Who Lead, Build, and Inspire. The gathering brought together women from diverse backgrounds to share experiences, gain practical knowledge, and inspire one another. Behind every successful initiative is a vision. To understand the purpose behind Sultanah and the inspiration for this gathering, we spoke with the organizers.
Sultanah is our female proposition. We noticed that there's a gap in the market for Muslim women getting Sharia compliant solutions. So we hope after today's event, they will understand that there are very many opportunities for them and their solutions. That means they should not be afraid to get into the financial world and start investing and borrowing and growing their businesses.
While the evening provided an opportunity to celebrate Eid, it also delivered valuable lessons designed to empower women personally, professionally, and financially. A distinguished panel of experts shared practical insights on health, entrepreneurship, law, finance, and networking. Dr. Fatma Mohamed Rashid emphasized preventive healthcare, fertility care, and mental wellness.
So the one advice that I would like to give in this room is regular health checkups, and that is very important because I can tell you actually a very small scenario that I usually used to face when I used to work at Mombasa Hospital. Most women used to come with issues of fatigue, muscle cramps, and you do a test, what we usually call the vitamin D levels. They are very, very low, and to a point that you have to supplement it. And I also look at us, women in the career, you leave your house at literally 8 a.m. and come back at 5 p.m. That means even that exposure to sun for you to get vitamin D, it's literally zero. And most of the times, especially for the Muslim ladies, we go out dress. So there is no time that we usually get that sun exposure. So I think it's very important for us to do regular health checkups, and that can include actually what we call annual health checkups and early screening, especially in cases of cervical cancer, breast cancer. So early screening actually it helps a lot to do like timely diagnosis and further management. One thing I would love to say is without your mental health, actually nothing else will function. That is all I can say. And I would like to emphasize on this because I feel like we do say like face a lot of mental health issues, not only, unfortunately, not only from our workplaces, sometimes even at our homes, you know, it could be a spouse, it could be a parent, you know, it could be a sibling. And to make it worse, nowadays we have the social media. You know, people look into social media and they feel like, you know, this is the kind of life I'm supposed to live. You know, you look at people of your same age and you start comparing, you know, she's at, you know, she's 30 years old. She's got her master's. She's bought a car. She has an apartment somewhere. I think one advice I can give to people is everyone has their own right time. So that's, you know, issue of comparing yourself with other people, it should never, you know, be something that you should do, as especially as a Muslim lady. And it's very important to take mental health breaks. You know, if you feel like something is not good for you, you know, if you feel like this is something that is taking a toll on your mental health, it's very important to communicate it.
Advocate Anzal Rashid encouraged entrepreneurs to establish strong legal foundations and document business agreements.
So many businesses fail financially, but it's important to make sure that your business doesn't fail legally. So when you're setting up a business, understand, do you want to set up a sole proprietorship? Do you want to set up a limited liability partnership? Or do you like to set up a limited liability company? It's important to understand, even though you do take your business personally, it might be your pride and joy, your business needs to be a separate entity from you individually, so that if at all anything happens down the road, you are secure, your personal assets are secure and are separate from the business assets. So that's where we come to understanding the concept of a legal entity. You as an individual are a legal entity, but your company is also a legal entity. I don't want to make it sound like a low class, because that's a whole unit on company law. But those are some of the basic things that we need to understand. If it's a limited liability partnership, it's important to understand what is your role as a partner, what are your responsibilities. Everything needs to be documented. Another thing that's important to understand, I think, as women, sometimes we might feel like it's just a handshake, it's an agreement, it's your friend, I'm sure things won't go wrong. My friend and I are in a partnership, but nothing is in writing. If nothing is in writing, then that basically doesn't exist. So that's the most basic principle of any agreement, any company law, any aspect of contracts. That everything has to be in writing.
Sophia Hassan of Absa Bank highlighted financial literacy, discipline, estate planning, and smart investing.
I think you start with clarity and awareness. So you need to know, okay, what do I have? And I think a good way, what assets do I have as well? A good way of doing that is, you know, in the Zakah process, because it's an audit we do as Muslim women every year. So going through that process to know what's my income, what are my expenses, and what do I actually then have to invest. And investments can take a lots of different forms. One of the things is, you know, you could do the traditional thing, which a lot of us and our grandmothers and mothers did, which is buy gold. That's one investment, and it's a good investment, physical gold. You could also think about, okay, you don't only have to buy gold physically. There are, so you don't only have to buy physical gold. You can buy shares of gold, and they are Islamic as structured notes that allow you to then buy shares of gold. And that's another way to look at it. You also need to think of it, do I want to lock up my money for a long time, or do I need to access it? Maybe think about it, what is my appetite as well for risk? Am I a little bit risk averse? Do I want something that will give me a consistent income, or am I looking to have something that is a little more risky? So that's another thing to think about. Property is another good way of doing that. If you do have some savings, you can then see, okay, can I invest in a property? Do I need to look at Islamic mortgages? I have something saved. Maybe I can add to that and own a property. That would be another good way to think about it.
Entrepreneur Fatma Jama encouraged women to define clear business objectives, hire capable teams, and understand their numbers.
Generally speaking, of course I'm generalizing, we generally think bigger than our personal egos or our personal motivation. We often, there is a lot of truth to that concept where they say, educate a woman and you educate a village. I think the same applies for business. Generally speaking, my experience has been when a woman is head of a business, she often thinks about who else can I benefit this business from? Not only her immediate family, but also communities thrive. The second thing as well is, and I think this one is, it's a hit and go, because at the end of the day, the primary purpose of business is to make a profit. And I know it's a difficult thing for a lot of us to talk about, but otherwise you're just running a charity. But the thing is as well, we think about the people. We think about the consequences. We're not so cutthroat, but we can also err into a side where a little bit of bleeding hearts. So we need to tap at that. But there is, if used for the good, I think that's a massive benefit that women bring to businesses, that we take everybody else with us. So yeah.
Elizabeth Fosuna emphasized economic empowerment and strategic networking, reminding participants that your network is your net worth.
There's a saying that says, your networks is your net worth, isn't it? Just have a look at your phones and all those contact numbers you have. How many of them are useful? Look at your networks, look at the people who surround you. Make sure that you build your networks. I dare ask myself, the people who are sitting on your table today, have you introduced yourselves? Do you know what each and every person does? And if you know all the people on your table, have you moved to the next one and asked them, this table, I think I need to know the people who are sitting on this table, because you can. Yeah? And it speaks to the courage that I'm expecting women to have. Nobody will look at you and say, why are you here? We are all here to make sure we can network. And I say it again, your networks are your net worth. The future belongs to women who are financially empowered, right? Purpose-driven and connected. Are we together? Those three things: financially empowered, purpose-driven, and connected. May each of us live here determined to build boldly, lead courageously, and create a legacy that transforms not only your own lives, but the lives of the generations to come, because we owe it to them.
We spoke with guests to hear what the evening meant to them and what lessons they will carry forward.
I think the event was actually a success. The message is home and clear. What we are trying to advise our customers, especially our women, is that they have the power in them to cover and protect themselves, and they can run their lives and they can actually think for themselves and make large decisions. They don't need to really ask for a second and a third opinion from someone else. We want to empower them so that they can be able to steer the wheel of their businesses, and they can reach out to us. We have got the Sultana account that we have introduced. It is halal, and we want to also advise them that we are here for them. We are giving solutions so that they can feel at home, they can feel free to approach us, find out what it is that we have to offer to them. They can experience the benefits of having this account. It's actually free. There are no charges on the account, and it's good for them, to know that they have got this product that is just designed for them. Our women need to also be reminded that they can be able to run their own businesses for themselves. So with that is just the first step of them making decisions for their future, for their businesses, for their families. We want them to also take more responsibilities when it comes to making decisions for themselves.
For me, what stood out is the three things I learned, especially to do with as a woman, when you are financially empowered, you should be able to know what your assets are and also know what the liabilities are, and be able to have an emergency fund. I don't think how realistic that is in this economic times, but for now I'm thinking, and it's always hard to save. We are also topics of and having an insurance and also being health insured and insured in terms of in case you lose your job, how do you take care of your business if you're a woman with a business, if you're an employed woman, how to be safe financially, so that in any circumstances we always plan for the worst case scenario. So I've also learned about personalities and also preparing for the future as you are planning and then overcoming the hard times that are expected to come. We are in 2026 and things are difficult, but inshallah things are working out. It's good to partner with a bank. I have been an ABSA account holder, I think, since 2015. So it's a good bank and I appreciate it. And now with the Sultana product, we are hoping to be in a more better position as women and being more in the empowered journey as we go forward.
The Sultana Eid Dinner was more than a celebration. It was a platform for learning, networking, and empowerment. Through conversations on health, legal awareness, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and personal growth, the event reinforced important message. Success is built through knowledge, preparation, resilience, and community. As Absa Bank Kenya, through its Lariba banking proposition, continues to champion women's economic participation, initiatives such as Sultana demonstrate the transformative impact of empowering women to lead, build, and inspire. Reporting for Al Huda TV from Sultana Eid Dinner in Nairobi, I am Habiba Hussein.